Okay, so let's take a look at Mike and Stacy here in the case I designed for them. So Mike is 67, Stacy's 64. She's going to work for the next 2 years. Mike is currently retired. His only income is Social Security, which is a little over 24,000. Stacy's projected Social Security at 66 is almost 23,000. Now they have an income goal in 2 years of $72,000 per year, which leaves an income gap of 24,237, and that's after adjusting for a COLA and Mike's Social Security of 1.75%. Now, using the 4% rule, the max amount they can withdraw is $20,000 per year. Now, unfortunately, that does not solve their income gap, so they have two options: to live off less, which is still too risky of a withdrawal rate, according to Dr. Fowl, or increase the risk of running out of money before they run out of life. Now, they can roll the dice and hope for the best, or we can put a strategy together that will meet the income needs and give them the safety they want for income guarantees while allowing them to keep their remaining assets in equities for bigger growth opportunities. So current investable assets are approximately 500,000. Now, kind of a rule of thumb in the annuity world is the annuity company will not accept more than 65% of your investable assets. So 65% max is going to be 325,000. So the problem that I ran into here is, how do I get them a guaranteed 24,237 per year using only 325,000? So that's almost a 7.5% withdrawal rate, while also leaving them 175,000 in pure liquidity for growth opportunities and emergencies. I mean, that's a huge problem because that's a huge payout rate. So what are their options? I mean, they could keep all of their money in stocks to try and get maximum growth rate. It could work out great, or it could be a complete disaster. When I'm doing comparisons, I'm always going to start with worst case scenario. I want to know what would happen if you enter retirement in a down market. So let's just pull up a calculator here. So option one, they could leave all the money in the market and just hope for the best. So if we look at the S&P 500, which is the best of the best, and this is going back to the year 2000 here. Now, this is the S&P 500 without dividends. I did not include dividends because we're not assuming any fees either at this point. So they could leave it in the S&P 500, again, which is the best of the best, and they can take their income gap of a little over 24,000 and start withdrawing it in a sequence of return scenario, meaning losses early on in retirement. And you can see that they're out of money by Stacy's age 85 here. And honestly, we haven't even factored in inflation, medical emergencies, major purchases, or again, we haven't talked about fees. So not to mention that no one just has their money in the quote-unquote S&P 500. Very few people get these returns. So this really isn't even an option just because of the risk. Okay, so option two. Would be a diversified portfolio that their advisor recommended to them. You know, it's the same stuff that everybody hears all the time, which is put your money into a diversified portfolio of stocks, bonds, mutual funds, blah, blah, blah. You know, it's again, it's the same thing we've all heard before. But remember the returns we looked at earlier from Dalbar's research? A diversified portfolio has only returned 2.89% over the past 20 years. Now, with this scenario, the money will last until Stacy's age 96, which is better than obviously all equities. But There is another problem with this type of calculation, and it's what I call Wall Street math. If you haven't read my article on Wall Street math, I encourage you to go to my website and find it under the newsletter section. It will blow your mind when you understand the concept. So basically, Wall Street math works on averages, but average returns and actual returns are very, very different. So just to show you what I mean, I'll do a quick example here. Okay. So let's say you put 100 grand into some fund that your money guy recommends. And let's say that first year it does really, really well and your money doubles. But next year it loses half, but then doubles again, and then it loses half. So it drops another 50%. So you look down here, you're 4 years down the road, but you have the exact same amount of money. But what happens is you get your statement in the mail, and it says your average return is 25%. Now, I mean, you feel great about yourself, but you just can't help but wonder why you have the same amount of money in there. But your guy is bragging about how he got you 25% return on your money, but your actual return is zero. It may be justified in your head by saying, well, at least I didn't lose anything. But we also forgot to calculate your management fees. So let's just say between management and possibly a fund fee, we'll say 1.5% to be conservative here. Well, when you add those in, now you can see your actual return is minus 1.5%. But look what didn't change over here, your average return that you see in your statement. So this is the stuff that the financial industry gets away with, and it's criminal as far as I'm concerned. And I personally have chosen to opt out of it. But back to my main point here. We cannot assume that they will earn 2.89% every single year. We have to take into account that there will be down years. And when we factor in a 15% loss every 5 years, and the reason I came up with that is if we go back, let's just take a look at some data here. This is the historical returns of the S&P 500 going all the way back to 1929. What we know is that a bear market occurs approximately every 5 years, and the average decline is almost 40%. Now, that takes about a year and a half to hit bottom, and then it takes another 5 years just to get back to your break-even point. So if we're looking at an average decline every 5 years of 40%, I think it's pretty fair to say if we factor in a 15% loss every 5 years on a diversified portfolio, I think that's a fair estimate. In fact, I think it's kind of generous. So if we look at that scenario versus getting, 2.89 every single year versus still getting an average, even a little over, but factor in losses, see what happens? They run out of money 6 years faster just from that little difference in Wall Street math there. So what is option 3? Because now we're going to get into the realm of the annuity world here. So if we look here in the blue, this is what I would call the lazy agent approach, where they put no thought into it. And it's just to pitch you an annuity with an income rider and tell you to draw down other assets until the guaranteed income gets to the point that it can fill the gap, the income gap, which in this case would be $24,000 and change. Unfortunately, when you do this, you could put the client at risk of drawing down money out of an account, again, in a down market, like we saw with the sequence of returns, which fortunately, even in this scenario, it still leaves them with almost $130,000 of assets plus the guaranteed income to age 100. So could this option work? Absolutely, and it does work. So I think we can do better though. So option 4 is the Atlas Annuity Income Strategy. What I did was split the $365,000 into two separate annuities that serve two separate purposes. The first one we funded with $250,000, and then we started to exercise the 10% penalty-free withdrawal option in Stacy's first year of retirement to fill the entire income gap, which again is a little over $24,000. The other benefits of this particular annuity are that it has a pretty decent performing index, but when the index increases, so does the income. And I used a modest return of about 3.5% for this scenario, which is well below the actual returns it has performed at. So they have the opportunity for increasing income from this particular annuity until Mike turns 95. And after that, it just levels out at the highest income that they've received from it. The remaining $75,000 we put into an annuity with a guaranteed roll-up on the income value that we will turn on in year 11. So between those two annuities and accessing the other portfolio down the road to fill any gaps, in this scenario, which again is a worst case scenario with the S&P 500, at the age of 100, they end up with almost $300,000. So a couple things I want to point out on the spreadsheet. You see that their total liquid assets in Stacy's first year of retirement show basically $500,000 in the diversified portfolio approach, and $175,000 using the annuity approach. First, I want to point out I did not include the liquidity that's available inside of the annuity, just to prove a point that when your case is designed correctly, you should not need to touch any of this money. We determined its purpose already, and it's serving its purpose right where it's at, even though there are more funds available than the $175,000. Second, just because you have $500,000 sitting in an account somewhere does not mean you can pull out $500,000 and spend it. That money is supposed to be serving a purpose. So what's the max that you can pull out in this scenario? 4%. But it's really only 3% or $15,000 per year. And then if we come down here, let's say, I hope Mike lives to be 103. I really do. And that's what we're always going to plan for. But let's say he passes away at 95. And Stacy's 92. Now what would happen here is obviously Mike's Social Security would go away. Actually, Stacy's would, and she would get Mike's. So the income's going to drop, and let's say, God forbid, she has to end up in some sort of assisted living. Do you think she's going to feel better with obviously no money left and then losing part of the income? Okay. Or if she, is eventually going to lose that Social Security, do you think she's going to feel better having $100,000 or $250,000 over here? And this is the difference when, instead of somebody trying to sell you a product with the lazy agent scenario over here, versus someone designing an actual strategy for you. So let's just do a quick recap here. So Mike and Stacy's Atlas Annuity solution, they put $250,000 into a 0% fee fixed index annuity that offers a free income rider and also allows for a 10% penalty-free withdrawal. The remaining $75,000 went into an a fixed index annuity with the income rider that had a guaranteed roll-up increase, which allowed for a much higher payout down the road because of the compounding, and they were older, so the payout rate was a lot higher, which actually comes out to 11% payout rate of the original premium. overall, even if they were to use the 4% rule, which was going to put them at a very high risk of running out of money early on, using the Atlas Annuity solution, they were able to get a little over 21% more income than that 4% rule. Not to mention, again, using a worst case scenario with the S&P 500, their ending account value is almost $300,000 at the age of 100. Now, will this work to the exact penny? Of course not, because we don't know what the market's going to do, but we do know what the annuities will do. And again, we've taken into account some of the worst sequence of returns in market history for their stocks. And that, my friends, is only our first case study for the Atlas Annuity strategy. We're actually going to be doing 3 more throughout these series of videos.